Hello, welcome to MBWK. This is an assembly video for my solar and LED tea light style lanterns. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you if you have purchased the file from Etsy. Thank you very much for supporting my small business. If you have taken the time to learn how to design this from scratch, I also want to thank you as well, and hopefully you've learned something along the way. If you found this video useful, please take a second to like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really means a lot. Thank you very much, and let's get to assembling one of these lanterns. We're going to delve into an exciting project, which is this solar and tea light lantern. This design allows you to create a beautiful source of light that harnesses the power of the sun, or with an LED tea light. For this project, I'll guide you through the necessary components and steps, ensuring that you have everything you need to get started. First, let's talk about the type of light source you'll be using. I recommend a 70mm solar light and or an LED tea light. These can be conveniently purchased from online platforms such as Amazon. Just need to make sure that the light source fits in the whole of the design. You can purchase smaller solar lights. If you do opt for a smaller light source, that's perfectly fine too. Just be sure to adjust the size of the hole in the design file. This way your lantern will accommodate the size that you're working with. An important point to remember is safety. Avoid using traditional tea lights that produce open flames, as they are not suitable for this kind of project. We want to steer clear of any naked flames in our lantern, ensuring it's safe and functional. For our project, I sourced 70mm solar lights and LED tea lights from Amazon. They come in packs of 8, they are rechargeable, and even come with a remote for ease of use. This means you can light up your lantern without worrying about changing batteries frequently, giving you a hassle-free experience. Now, once your light source is sorted, let's take a look at the different components of our lantern. We have a set of decorative panels, we have the top components, and then we have the base components that will support everything. During the construction process, you'll need a few essential tools and supplies. Firstly, sandpaper for smoothing edges, particularly for the bayonet system. This will help ensure that parts fit together seamlessly and allow for any fine adjustments necessary. Next up, we have wood glue. My personal preference is Type Bond 3. Coupled with that, we'll be using CA glue. To apply the wood glue, we will need some sort of applicator, like a brush. This is very handy for reaching those tight spaces and apply just the right amount of glue. Within the design file, you will notice two components specifically included to assist you in achieving the perfect fit before committing to cutting out the full project. So here we have a 3mm veneered wood, and as you can see, it's extremely tight. This took me 2 attempts to achieve a perfect fit. I make sure to use something similar to this in every build project I have. This is a 4mm version of the lantern, and as you can see, that took me 4 attempts to achieve the right result for this. In my experience, having a slightly looser fit is more advantageous when using glue and makes the assembly process easier when you have multiple components to fit together. All the necessary slots for assembly can be found on the green layer in the design file. By double-clicking on the green layer, you can modify the kerf offset. If you increase this value, you'll have a looser fit. Conversely, reducing the number, here you can see it's gone into the minus, and it's changed from outward to inward. This will create a tighter assembly. This feature allows for customization based on your material thickness and personal preference if needed. You can also adjust the settings in the red layer if needed. Before diving into the cutting process, I recommend starting with 3 specific components, these 2 hexagons and one of these parts here. If this part is too tight or too loose, we can modify it easily in the design, but what we're looking for is a nice fit between these 3 components. If there's any discrepancy in the thickness of your material, then that tolerance is doubled because we're using 2 thicknesses. That's why we need to cut one of these out to make sure it fits over this double stack before we go any further in cutting more components. If it doesn't quite fit as needed, what we can do is go to our design and we can select one of these components. If we hold Control and press D, we'll make a duplicate and drag that into our workspace. Make sure that everything is ungrouped. From here we can go to the rectangle tool and draw a small rectangle. If it's too loose, then we can add a small amount of material. We can make this just adding 0.5 millimeter. We make sure that it's on the red layer. Then what we can do is select both of those together, come across to the weld boolean tool, click on that, and then you will have added that extra 0.5 millimeter to make it a bit tighter. If it's too tight, what we can do is we can go the other way, make sure that we're adding or subtracting from the top. What I like to do if we're taking material away is just make sure that these lines overlap so there's no artifacts left behind. And again, what we can do is select both of those, go to the Boolean subtract tool. If we click that, it will remove the material. If you click it and the rest of your shape disappears, just hold Control and press Z and that will bring your outline back. Go back to the same Boolean subtract tool and click it again and it will remove it properly. So that's a very quick and easy way of making sure that this fits properly before continuing with the rest of your build. Just a quick note, this was the 2 bits that I referred to earlier in the ones that you want to make sure fit correctly before moving on to this. Now that 99% of the problems that you may come across have been addressed in the beginning of this video, we're now on to the assembly. The assembly for these lanterns are exactly the same for the 3mm version, the 4mm version, the 5mm version, and the 6mm version, which I'll be assembling for this video. They all go together exactly the same way. I'm going to be using just CA glue in this video just to keep time short, but I would recommend on using PVA, if not PVA with CA glue. So the CA glue sets within seconds and you get a permanent bond with the PVA. I'm just going to clear this workspace area and then I'll be back with you in a second. So first of all, we're going to start with these 2 hexagons and these components. And all we're going to do is situate these in the little grooves on each corner, just applying a little bit of glue as we go around. What we want to keep in mind is this radius on top wants to be on top, not where the slots are cut out. So this is what we're going to have after we've assembled that part. Then we're going to go on to the smaller decorative panels. Should have 6 of these as well. And these are just going to line up in these slots here. Once you have all of this together, we're going to go to the next step, which is this part here, which is basically the cover for the other panel. And you can do it either way. We can go either on top, or we can flip it over and line up all of the slots together to situate them where we need them. This can be the hardest part just because of the amount of slots, and you may have to just keep going around and adjusting until all of the outer ones are roughly in position first, and then placing the small ones inside afterwards. Once you have all of the outer ones lined up, what we can do is just keep pressure on the top and just gently press in each side. Once you have everything flat, just make sure that all of your gaps are closed in and around the center. On one of these I saw that there was a little bit of a gap there, so what we can do is just apply a small amount of glue to the underside and just press that into the joint. That is the top section completed, which means a solar LED light will be able to fit into the top nicely. Just going to put that across to one side. From there, what we're going to do is go across to these decorative panels, and the component with the hexagon cut out of the middle. This is the underside to this. The only reason why it's double stacked is because I didn't want these slots being shown through the top here. It's a bit of an OCD thing, but I think it looks a lot cleaner. So we're going to just do the same thing. If you want to clean these up with a bit of sandpaper first, please do so. And again, we're just going to apply a little bit of glue to the shoulders. Insert the decorative panel. If you get a bit of bowing, you'll see a little gap at the bottom, so just make sure that you keep a bit of pressure on there until the glue sets, and that will help the board stay flatter. Just notice I got a little crack in that one there. But we're just going to go around and do exactly the same thing to each of the 6 panels. CA glue is definitely my favourite type of glue when it comes to projects like this. I did notice that that one was really tight, and I have a feeling it's because it's going across grain rather than with the grain. And what it can do is, when I've had a lot of moisture like I've had the last few days, these gaps can shrink a little bit and the thickness of the wood could get a little bit thicker because of the moisture in the air. What we can do is, with a bit of sandpaper, if things are still being a bit tight, what we can do is take just the corners of our tabs and run it along the edge of the sandpaper. So you don't have to do the whole panel, you can just do the edges. That just knocks off the edges a little bit to slot in a little bit easier. Just pop a bit of glue in there. Just another quick tip. I love this pattern. This is one of my favourite patterns. Not my best seller as a pattern. I think this is my wife's favourite as well. So there we have the decorative patterns. And if you want, you can change these patterns out. It doesn't have to be patterns, it could be a scene, a wildlife scene, or anything you really want. So we're just going to pop that to one side now. So the base is going to be on the bottom here. The top is going to be stuck to the top, but we're going to do that at the end. So just put those two bits to one side. If you want to, this is also part of the top. If you're not going to put a solar light in the top here, this is a cover for the top with somewhere where you can hang it. So we can glue that on, and you can marry these corners up with the decorative bits on the side. I'm going to leave that off for the time being because I want it to have a solar light in it. Let's just pop that off to one side again. Next we have the bayonet and the base. So the base has the extra slots. That's for the feet to go on. So the feet will go in the center holes, and the decorative panels will go on the holes either side and in the middle. Feet go on at the end. What we need to do with this base, so there's a couple of different ways of doing this. Because the bayonet itself is the same thickness, and to make sure that you have clearance for it to come through, because there's a spacer as well. So to make sure that this bayonet component is slightly higher than the base, so it rotates freely to lock into place, there's a couple of ways of achieving this. My preferred option is to sand the base slightly thinner. So I will run across the thickness on the bottom of the whole base and make it slightly thinner. That is my preferred option. You could cut the base out of a slightly thinner material, or you can pack the spacer off using a bit of double-sided stick tape. Problem being is, if moisture gets underneath this, then it could release if it's subject to any weather. So I like to take the thickness off of the base itself. The other thing you can do is be very generous with the amount of glue that you put on this to make sure that the spacer is slightly raised, and then that way when this gets fitted through there, you'll have enough space for this to turn easily. So I'm just going to sand my base. It shouldn't need a huge amount, but the more you take off, the easier this is going to fit. Just pop that to one side for a second. So there's a yellow layer in the design file which needs to be set to engrave, and that's just to locate this spacer. So what we want to do is just make sure that we get our spacer central. My wood's very cupped. So we just want to make sure that that spacer is central. Then the bayonet component needs to go on the top of the spacer. Then what we can do is take both the base component and the bayonet fitting, and we can make sure that it fits together well. So there we have a very nice smooth action. So this base is thin enough for this to work really nicely. The next step is going to be the catch for the base. So this just makes sure that the bayonet doesn't turn too far. As you can see here, if I get a good camera angle, this line here wants to marry up with the edge of the bayonet, and it will do that on every side. So we can glue that in place there. Just a small bead of glue around the outside. Make sure to be careful to not encroach on the space where the bayonet goes through. Then, as you can see, the bayonet comes up, and then we can rotate it. It won't fall out, and it's not going to overturn and come out one of the other sides. Very cool system. Next is the covering. That's just going to go on top of the bayonet system to cover up those cuts. And if you have a larger candle, it's going to help stop it from rocking from side to side. So again, we can just apply a small amount of glue around the outside. And then we can place that ring on the top. Nice. That CA glue is already set. So we can place the bayonet system in, give it a turn, and it's locked in place. Really nice system. Now all we've got to do is take the decorative part of our lantern and glue it in place to the base. So again, just apply a small amount of glue. I'm going to flip it out this way. And again, this bit can be a little bit fiddly, but what I would do is start with a corner of 2 of the decorative frames. So I'm starting here. Line those 2 up. You can actually get a finger inside the lantern through the bayonet hole. We're just going to apply a little bit of pressure until all the sides are pretty much lined up. Once everything is in line, we can start adding more pressure and they'll start clicking into place. Now, I had noticed that one of the sides wasn't in quite right. I wouldn't recommend using a hammer if you can get away with it, but if necessary, you can use a gentle persuader. Just be very careful not to hit it too hard. Otherwise, you'll end up breaking the decorative panels. And we're just working around each corner. Now that each corner has been located, we can just push this into place. Nice. So we've got our base and the bayonet fitting. And the top. Only the feet to go. So here, same again, the two remaining slots are for the feet. So apply again just a small amount of glue. And again, use PVA if necessary. I like to use PVA and CA glue if I'm selling these. Just work your way around each one. And again, if any of these tabs are too tight for whatever reason, we can take this and just give it a little rub on a bit of sandpaper, and that'll help fit in those slots. Unfortunately, wood isn't perfect. It is susceptible to moisture in the air, and it can expand and contract to where it can make life a little bit difficult sometimes. But all we can do is get around it. And hopefully there's enough information in this video for you to get around all of the potential issues. So now we have the feet on, the bayonet system is on the bottom as well. If we didn't have these feet, then the bayonet system would be sitting on the surface, which means it might rock. So these feet just give a nice little decorative feature and serves a purpose as well. Last but not least, we have the top to cover this up. This is what I was on about. I didn't want this exposed. The OCD side is kicking in, and putting that on top just makes everything look that much nicer. So again, apply some glue, PVA it as well if you can. Just going to hit this with some activator. Line the corners up. If you're using CA glue, you have to be very, very quick, extremely quick. Just put a bit of pressure on, marry up those edges. You can always go around and sand these edges if you didn't get it quite right. But there we have it. That's the assembly video for the solar anti-light lanterns. And again, if you want to put this bit on top because you're not using a solar light, that cover strip is there as well. And how good does that look?